Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Oscar Klele, and I'm delighted to be your host for this session. We're here to explore CSRD, data digital best practice, a subject that's increasingly relevant and impactful within the IT and ESG space. Today, we're joined by Mohammed Khan, CTO Microsoft Services Division, Ashley Connors, our ESG consultant, and Mukesh, who's our senior data engineer, who all bring a wealth of experience and insights to share with us today. Before we dive in, let me quickly go over some housekeeping. The session will run for an hour with time for Q&A at the end. Feel free to drop your questions in the chat box as they come to you, and we'll address as many as we can. Now, without further ado, let's get started. I'll now hand over to our first speaker, Mohammed.
Thank you, Oscar. Appreciate that intro. I'll be kicking off today's session. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining. And as Oscar mentioned, we'll be going over, I'll just go through the agenda quickly. So we'll first have a look at sustainable digital transformation best practices. Then we will do a CSRD overview. So you'll get a good insight to the different data points and the different ways of how you actually report in CSRD on the different data points there. We'll look at the different tools that will help you with your CSRD reporting. And then we will show you a couple of demos. Before I jump into the main agenda of today, I'd like to introduce everyone to the project Digital for Sustainability. This session today is part of that. So what this is a European Commission funded project, and it involves 29 members all across the EU, including ourselves, TEKenable, and it is a 4-year EU funded project. The whole goal of this is upskilling the European marketplace for having digital and green transitional skills. So the aim of this is to create new jobs and to create a new generation of ICT and sustainability professionals. The roadmap here outlines the plan for the 4 years. So in 2024, we kicked off. We had different things going on, such as needs analysis and figuring out where the gaps are currently in the EU when it comes to sustainability and digital jobs. 2025, you'll see today, this is the start of the rollout. So we've figured out what the gaps are, and we're starting to roll out training programs to address those. Moving on into 2027, we will be rolling out full training programs within universities all across Europe, with basically what we're doing today. Going over CSRD, how you would report with digital tools, and yeah, it's a very broad scope. So at the end of this presentation, I have quite a few different links that you can click into, and you can stay involved in the project as we go through it. And of course, I'll introduce you to TEKenable. So the team today, we are from TEKenable, a Dublin-based company, and we have over 220 employees specializing in Microsoft solutions, data and AI. We have lots of great awards under our belt. Best Workplace is one of those. Our actually great place to work, and we actually last week we got awarded that again for the coming year, so we're really proud of that. And we also have Microsoft AI Partners of the Year last year as well. So without further ado, we'll kick on into the subject of today. So sustainability, it is a data challenge, and it's quickly evolved from being a buzzword to having something with a lot of need for action in organizations today, especially in the EU. So the challenge really is about a need for having up to about 1,000 new data points that companies need to report on. And that comes from 10 different global standards, 10 plus. That's just an estimated number. So as you can see, with all these new data points needed and this new level of reporting, organizations need to shift and move to ensure that they're sustainably compliant. And with that, there's an awful lot of different management and processes that need to go on. And we'll go through those today. You'll get a flavour of how to actually implement and how your organisation can move through that journey. So what is a sustainability digital transformation? I have a couple of people here who probably are more best placed than I, but basically, it's not just about compliance anymore. It's about using this data throughout these exercises to drive business decisions. And what I mean by that is all these new data points that we're getting, there's actually huge business value in, for innovation and things. So it's about looking at this through the lens of it's no longer just a tick box exercise. You can actually, by acquiring this data and by moving forward, you can do a lot of great things with it. And again, we have Andrew Kasoy from B Labs. He says it's all about creating value for your stakeholders, not just about compliance. So what does good look like? I think the most important thing here is that it is, I suppose everyone here on the call today thinks about CSRD, and it might kind of put the hairs on the back of their necks up a bit, because it is quite a daunting challenge. But there is ways about it, and everyone's kind of in agreement, and especially from the EU regulators, that this is the process that we can follow. So it's about continuous improvement. CSRD doesn't mean that it's going to be in scope for your business and the next day you're going to have to do all of these scary things. It's actually it's to show that you're moving in the right direction. So what that means is that it's not an event, it's a journey. So you and your teams in your business, you will have to do things each year and iterate and focus on different parts of the business, and it's continuous, it's circular. You're doing things and then going back and addressing them, and then the next year you're looking at other parts, and we'll dive into that a bit deeper. And I suppose the most important thing here is that it's driving innovation and differentiation. So how do we actually do this? And I think this is quite a good way of thinking about it. Again, it's circular, not linear. So this probably describes it better than I did. So we'll just walk through this here. So in step one, what we do is we assess the as-is landscape. And what I mean by that, whenever I picture this, I think of looking under the car bonnet, so of your organization. So where is the organization now? What data have we got? Where is the gaps? And that's just figuring out where your current state is. And that gives you a baseline for your transformation. From there, you will move towards developing a comprehensive sustainability digital transformation strategy. And what that is taking in, it's about holding workshops within your organization and finding out what's really important to your organization. So when I say this, CSRD isn't a one size fits all for every organization. It's very flexible, and it's really important to do these exercises before you go into your reporting phases to see exactly what your organization will be reporting on. And once you have that strategy in place, it's important to prioritize. So as I said, this is an iterative type process. So we're not going to boil the ocean on the first day. Not everything is, you're not going to have 100% done in year one. So you're prioritizing the things in your digital strategy. And then from there, you're delivering on those prioritized focus areas. You're measuring and tracking the impact of those. So, and then you review and repeat. And as you go back through that again, you're going down through the list of prioritization. And again, this is circular, and you're going through that whole process iteratively, year on year. And it's important to understand that that's how the CSRD is built. It's built not just to show, okay, we have all these data points now in the morning. It's about showing this is our plan to get these data points. This is how we're moving the dial. This is the progress. This is how we're going to get there. So how do we approach this? And I think this graph is a really good representation of the data in our organizations currently. So on the left there, you're seeing that, you know, each of those bubbles represent different sets of data in your organizations across different departments. So one of those bubbles could be HR data, one could be your finance data, another could be your transactional data in SAP or wherever. So all of these different pieces of data are all over your organization, and they may be in a digital format, or they could be in SharePoint, or they could be paper-based, or they could be in some filing box on a site, you know, in another country. So I suppose if we go back to the approach, it's about figuring out as is, where is that data, and seeing where the gaps are. And once you've done that, that kind of piece of exercise, you've found all those little balls all around your organization, which is your different sets of data that's needed for CSRD. What you're doing is unifying that data, bringing it into one place so that your organization can easily report on it. And I suppose if we look at what that is, so there's a huge amount of manual collection needed for getting that data across the business. And it's just important to know that there are tools out there that can help, and that's what we're going to show you today. Mohammed and Mukesh will be walking you through those. So just to show that exercise of collecting data can be made a lot easier through digital solutions. And how do we, like, what are the different elements needed to successfully do that sort of a project? So what are the enablers? We have people, so important, and every ESG, every sustainability project I've ever been on, you know, people are at the core of it. And really, because your data is all over the organization, it's in HR, as I said, finance, legal, operations, you know, it's logistics, you have to get it everywhere. So it does involve a lot of people. So it is, you know, bringing a lot of people together, training them, making sure that they understand what the process is, and aligning. And obviously to do that, you need good processes in place and technology. Again, as I said, you could do this all manually, it could take you a long time to do that, or you could do it with tools. And then finally, at the core of that again is data. So at the end of the day, I hope I have already drilled home that point that data is really the core of this. So before I jump into CSRD and really like the deep dive into the different data points, I'd like to just take a couple of moments to do a short exercise. And what this exercise, what I hope to achieve out of it, is these are the kind of questions that you should be asking yourself in 2025 and 2026. Keep coming back to these questions, because these are the things that will drive your organization forward for a sustainable digital transformation. So if I could please ask you to pick up your phones or whatever gadget you have, and if you could scan the QR code, please, and you'll get a number of questions. and if you could go down through those and answer them. I'll give, so we're at 10:19, I'll give 5 to 10 minutes. I'll be able to see how many people answered in the back, and I'll show up the answers at the end. Thank you. And you can click save at the bottom, and then you'll see your own answers. Just that's how you see the number of yeses and nos at the end of it.
Nice. There's a question in the chat there. Maybe while we're waiting, you could think about the answer.
Yes. Let me see if I have so many things up on my screen. Sorry. Okay. So, will this be part of the new legislation the EU is bringing in, like DORA? Yes, Eamon. So, I'll be going through this now in the next section, but this is part of that, similar to DORA, similar to GDPR, and we'll go through the different timelines as well, so you can understand where you will be reporting for your own organisation. So yeah, hopefully it'll give you a bit more clarity once we get to that slide. Perfect. I think that's enough time now, and let me just see if I can pull up. Yes, okay. Pull up the answers here. Okay, so the first question is your organisation planning to report under CSRD between now and 2027? So you're seeing a split here, which is great. So great that we have people on the call today that will be reporting in these upcoming years. So hopefully today will be a great value as we walk through further in the session. And for the no's, I think it's important to understand that even if your organisation isn't, in scope for CSRD in these years, your customers and the people that you do business with might be in scope. So they might have to come to you for different data points and different things. So it's important to understand, even if you're not in scope, to have some sort of a plan or some sort of understanding on what you might be asked from your customers. So there's a good bit of exercise. There's an exercise there really to understand that. have you automated regulatory reporting? Mostly no, and some yeses. So you'll get a good understanding today of lots of different tools that you can choose from after we go through it. Can most of your employees explain what CSRD is? That's fantastic. When I first started working in sustainability, and it was, I don't know, over 5 years ago now, we were talking about, can most of your employees explain what ESG is? So now that we're at the point where it's CSRD, that's fantastic, really good. Do you track your ESG data with digital tools? No, and 78% no, and 21% yes. Okay. Do you have a digital sustainability roadmap? No, and 28% yes. Are you using supplier engagement portals for sustainable collaboration and transparency up and downstream? So yeah, we'll understand a bit more what that is further on. But this is basically when you're having to understand your scope 3 footprint. You're having to go out to your supply chain and collect data from them. So it's good to see that people are already using tools to do that, because when I did it without tools, I'm surprised I have any hair left. Back in the day when I worked in internal sustainability teams, lots of Excel sheets and survey monkeys to thousands of suppliers. Do you have a learning and development in place for sustainability? That's fantastic. Almost an overwhelming yes there. Do you ask your suppliers to meet standards, and is this tracked digitally? A split there. So yeah, again, if you are in the nose, this is something to maybe think about for 2025. Have you added sustainability goals to how you measure employee performance? Great to see there's a lot of yeses there. Are your business decisions influenced by real-time data about sustainability? A split, very interesting, very good. Do you share your sustainability progress with customers or stakeholders in clear digital format? So a lot of yeses there. Fantastic. I think, oh, this is the last one. Have you replaced paper-based solutions with digital ones to save resources? A lot of yeses there, so fantastic. Okay, that's brilliant. I really appreciate you participating in that. And I suppose the end goal of that is to understand, if you were in a position where you had a lot of no's, what you would probably be classed as in terms of your sustainable digital transformation maturity would be that you're aware. And if you got a lot of yeses, that means the organization is sustainably driven. So the couple of steps that we'll cover today hopefully will give you an idea of how to move from an aware state into a sustainably driven state. And I'll drive on. Okay, so CSRD, how did we get here? And why is it something we will need to report in the next couple of years? So I suppose you've been seeing a lot about the European Green Deal. That was really the catalyst for this, and all companies are starting to have a race to net zero. You're seeing a lot of different global standards. You're seeing mobilization of capital. So what that is where people like the central bank and different finance institutions, you're starting to see a lot of sustainable finance. So, you know, better interest rates and sustainably linked loans, things like that. So that's kind of where the market's been moving for the last number of years. And from that, then, of course, you've got your socially conscious investors. So really what this is to understand that CSRD is, yes, it is compliance, but there is an awful lot of opportunity for innovation, for getting it right and for doing it. So when is it going to be applicable to your business? It's really dependent on the size of your organization. So for listed companies, by financial year 2024, they would have had to start reporting. non-listed 2025 this year, and then SME size organizations by 2027. So large companies, which is the 2025, you can see the couple of indicators there to understand if your organization fits into that. So if you have over 250 employees and or 50 million turnover and or 25 million total assets. So if you hit 2 out of the 3 of those, you will be reporting in 2025. And I suppose, where is this going to be reported? It's going to be in your annual management report. Depending on the year, it's necessary to report on it. And it has to be submitted in XHTML format. And why I'm bringing your attention to that today is because to give that a little bit more thought than oh, it's just a format. There's an awful lot of mapping needed with your internal data to achieve that format. So to have a think about that, put a bit more time than you might think you need for that actual exercise. And it's overseen by the Irish Auditing and Accounting Supervisory Authority. And I suppose it's also something that if you're seen as non-compliant, over the summer there, Ireland brought in regulation that directors can actually be prosecuted for not having this in place when your company is in scope to do so. And the last thing on the slide is almost half of the companies surveyed in Ireland were unaware that they were that they'll be independently audited as a requirement of the CSRD. So that was the Irish Times a couple of months ago. So anyone on the call today, and if it's their first time hearing about CSRD, it's great, because now you fall into the category that do know. So what actually is in CSRD? So the legislation is broken down into 5 major categories. And what you're looking at here is when you see the ESRS 1, 2, they're the different subcategories. So within each of those categories, you have a different topic that's needed to be reported on. So you have things like workers in the value chain. You're going to have to understand what's going on in your value chain. There's different data points there. There is pollution, air, water, soil measurements. What are you doing to mitigate harm? There is consumer and end users, biodiversity and ecosystems, business conduct, and your own workforce. That's actually the top right one there. So a lot of that data will be coming from your HR department. A lot of things about diversity, gender pay gap, age, and lots of different things there. So to give you an understanding of how many data points are within all of these topics, hopefully this will bring it to light for you here. So in total, there's just under 1,200 data points within CSRD. And it's important to understand that not all of these data points are material for your company. So when I say it's not material for your company, if you think back to that process, that circular process of how you actually do this, it's when you do that, defining your strategy and seeing where your company is at the minute, you are trying to figure out which of these boxes are important for your business, and that will determine what you're reporting on. So what that does, that exercise, it takes it from 1,200 data points. On average, this is this is just a figure in the air number, but after doing that exercise and seeing what's material for your company, it comes down to about 500 to 600 of these data points that are relevant to your company. And if we break that down a little bit more, so 20% of all of those data points are going to be numerical, percent, monetary, quantitative data. And then 80% of those are qualitative data, which are narrative, policies, have you got these policies? What process have you got in place for this? And it's narrative. So hopefully that's a good graph for you guys to take away today. And you'll see, so say as an example, in your own workforce, ESRS S1, there's 202 data points in there in total. So that's one of the biggest ones. So just important to, when we are thinking about building teams for this, HR is really important, and your data from your payroll systems, and what else is there? So yeah, I think that's a good enough understanding of how many data points are within each of the categories. Okay, I might take a couple of questions there. So, Mukul, I'm a bit confused. Isn't CSRD focused on overall ESG scope or just the IT footprint scope? CSRD, IT isn't focused. CSRD is focused on your overall ESG scope. So that would include your IT footprint scope. So your overall ESG footprint would have your IT footprint in there as well. So that would be your indirect scope 2 emissions. Hopefully that answers that. Lau, are you expecting all these data points to change a lot over the 1 to 3 years? My understanding is that it's still work in progress. Yes, Lau, that's a really important question because it has seemed to change a lot. And of course, we can expect it to change again. But I suppose the tools we're going to show you today, what they will do is you don't even really need to think about the changes because they will update it for you on these systems. So I suppose we can all be in agreement that as they are today, that's what we work with, and they won't change too much unless something crazy happens, which hopefully it doesn't. How do the CSRD regulation data points differ from the UN Sustainable Development Performance Indicators? Yeah, that's a great question, Shul. So the UN Sustainable Development Performance Indicators, they would have been a great starting point for an ESG journey for your business. And I'd say that the CSRD, because it is aligned to the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, and that links in quite tightly with the UN Sustainable Development Performance Indicators, you'll see an awful lot of similarities between CSRD and the UN Sustainable Development Performance Indicators, but there's an awful lot more in CSRD now. So UN Sustainable Development Performance Indicator was, a certain amount of data points, but CSRD is more. But you'll see a lot of similarities there. And that's actually something I'll go through, that in all these different regulations there's an awful lot of overlap, which is great because if you have done a lot of work in UN Sustainable Development Performance, you will have a lot of these data points already, which is a great way to set you up for reporting phase. Okay, so what are the requirements? So CSRD has all these different data points that we need to report on. So what do they actually need from us beyond the data points? So what do we need to show them? So this is how they set it out. When you are reporting, you need to show all these different things in that triangle. So it's your governance and strategy, it's your material impacts, risks and opportunities, your policies around the different data points, your actions in the data points, your targets for those, and then your metrics. So if we take, let me just think, diversity, gender diversity as an example. So that's the data point that you're reporting on. I'll take that one. So CSRD would want to see your organization have governance and strategy in place for that particular data point. They'll want to have seen that you've done an exercise to map out the material impacts, risks, and opportunities for that. They'll want to see policies in your company for that data point. They want to see actions too around that. and of course targets. So it's forward looking, again, circular, not linear. They're always trying to ensure that this is iterative and not a just tick box. So the targets is really setting the kind of future, track for that. And then the metrics, so where we are now with that particular data point. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of data overlap with the alphabet soup of regulation. On the left there, you're seeing a triangle of all the different types of sustainability regulations that we've had up until now. I'm sure there'll be more again, and a lot are very industry specific, and some are more general. So within that, as Shul pointed out, which is a really good point because it ties in nicely with this, is that, data points that you would have seen before, say in Sustainable Development Goals, you'll see again in CSRD, you'll see again in other regulations. So I suppose the point here is that any work you do in any part of sustainable regulation, you'll be able to use those data points again for CSRD moving forward. So yeah, we love the data overlap because it means a little bit less work for our organizations. We've talked a lot about the challenges, so I'll gloss over that. But the opportunities, I suppose, just getting a competitive edge, you'll be seeing to your customers. Oh, sorry, that went off. My wire is loose. Apologies. A competitive edge. So working with your customers, if you have this in place, it's an awful lot easier to do it, to work together. Once you have these data points that you can show your customers, obviously you'll be a preferred supplier. And cost is another opportunity, I think, because if you use digital tools to do this, there's a lot of manual hours cut out. So yeah, I will go through the kind of the manual tasks that are involved in this. Sure. Sorry, here's a question. CSRD requires more alignment towards greenhouse gas protocol. What about ISO and the PSAF standards? More alignment towards these different standards. So, sure, when I say that the CSRD is kind of built upon the greenhouse gas protocol, yeah, you're right, it does align to it. And what I'll do is I'll take those questions away, Shul, because off the top of my head now, I'll have to do a little bit of digging, and I'll come back to you. So if you want to, I'll find you on LinkedIn or something. Yeah, perfect. I'll come back to you on that. Apologies. Okay, so what does CSRD reporting actually look like? And that's what we're going to go through now before I pass over to my team. So within CSRD, you're going to have to understand what your emissions are. So the metrics are what's your carbon footprint. So this is what an emission calculation looks like in Excel. So this is within CSRD. So you've got lots of different tabs there, lots of different calculations. So if you were doing your emissions calculations with Excel within a company, just from my learning and doing this before, yeah, it's very hard because Excel there's a lot of mistakes can be put in. It's hard to put in rules and things. So when you have a lot of people collaborating to put data into one place, it's a bit of a nightmare. Your calculations can get thrown. We actually needed a PhD student to help us to do all the calculations in here. So other things is even just sharing it back and forth. We got to a certain point with it and we couldn't actually send it to each other anymore to build it out because it was breaking our laptops. So thankfully, they have brought in digital tools. So every tool we're showing you today are, it's just one example. So Microsoft's Sustainability Manager is the one I'll be showing you. But that's not to say that there's not other tools out there that might be more suited to your business, but these are the ones we are showing you today. So this is what it can look like if it's not an Excel sheet. This is what your emission tracking looks like. You know, there's a lot of powerful calculation tools built into this. So yeah, you don't need to hire extra PhD students to do all the calculations anymore. And you know, you can split this up however you like. There's lots of automated you know, approvals, and it's fully auditable and traceable. So that's really important, because this is going to be something that's reported and have audited. So you need all those different checks and balances in place. You can split up the data for your organization however you like. And there's lots of great reporting in it as well. So you can actually build your CSRD report from here. And when I say that there's a lot of great calculations in here, so within Sustainability Manager, you have a lot of emission libraries. And apologies if this is a little bit too advanced in terms of language and things, but to explain it, in order to get your emissions for a company, you need to find out the carbon equivalent. So you need to find industry specific calculations and data sets that match your business, that when you do that exercise, you know, you have them there. But yeah, before this existed, I spent hours searching for industry specific data sets, and it was a bit of a nightmare. So it's great to have a library here of extensive industry coverage, and it's very easy to map. So it takes a lot of hours out of this exercise. Okay, so we looked at emissions there, and this is an example of a CSRD report. What you're looking at is, if you remember all the categories that we covered, each of these lines is the actual where you would report that. So as you can see, again, lots of different tabs for each of the topics. So there's up to 1,200 data points within this Excel sheet. And yes, it's probably a fun one to fill out. Has been a fun one to fill out. Or you could do it with this tool, which is Microsoft Purview, and what's in here is full auditability, full traceability. It's got lots of guidance on actually how to do it, and you know, there is your full approval chain in there, and when an auditor comes in, you just hand this over and don't need to worry about lots of different documentation that you'd need if you had an Excel way of doing this. So again, this is Microsoft Purview. This is just how you would report with a digital tool versus an Excel tool. So with that, thank you for listening through that, and I'm going to pass you over to Mohammed Khan, who's going to show you the different tools again, and I'm going to give him control here. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ash. Just give me 1 second when I get my presenter view on. I might just share my screen because I can't see the presenter notes, Ash, if that's okay. Just bear with me. Bear with me. I'll just go to my slide. Apologies. Technology.
No worries.
So here we are. So thank you very much, guys, and apologies for that. So we're gonna look at in this section some of the tools and architectural kind of best practice. We're going to look at it from the perspective of kind of what the challenges are, and then how we, with our understanding, being a Microsoft partner, we can kind of see how these can be solved by the Microsoft's tech stack and some of the tools that Ash just touched upon. And as she said, there are probably other tools available in the market, but we can only go with what we are familiar with. So we're just going to touch upon those in this section. The kind of architectural importance in CSRD compliance from the technology perspective is that the complexity that Ash showed in terms of collecting the data, that is a major challenge for organizations. So if you had to manually compile that information, it is inefficient and prone to errors as a process. And those like Ash who have done this in the past, kind of manually collating that information and converting that into the reporting formats, would attest that anything that could help streamline and digitize that and centralize that process is kind of a desired functionality that the organizations should look for. And the solution we have seen Microsoft come up in the last couple of years is a number of products they're trying to keep them aligned to the regulatory requirements, but they provide that centralized kind of streamlined process for also kind of the reporting as well as for the compliance and auditing. So the end-to-end process can be managed with a number of tools. So it's important to understand that it's not one tool, but there's a number of tools that can be used in any combination that organizations require. So some of the key pillars of a kind of a data architecture for CSRD would be essentially a data integration layer. So that means tools or tooling that could help you unify data from various sources. And again, Ash kind of explained how the data requirements to gather them, they're all over the organization's kind of ecosystem. So it might be other ERP systems, it might be IoT data sources from devices. If you have, let's say, a fleet of vehicles you're managing, it might be kind of a specific software for kind of collating ESG information for particular parts of your business. So that data integration layer is very important. The next one is a layer which is essentially for analytics and reporting. So you need somehow where your sustainability officers can interact, a platform where your sustainability officers can interact with that data and the metrics and the outputs of that data. A tool that could provide you dashboards, visualizations, and insights for your sustainability reporting allows you to set your goals and metrics and track them. Then you may need to do some automations. So you need tools that allow you to kind of streamline repetitive compliance tasks and validate, for example, like validating data or generating or triggering reports to be sent electronically, particular parts of kind of the financial year as the regulation kind of requires you. So you need some sort of an automation or workflow capability. And of course, the governance and obviously security of that data. So again, if you're going to be independently audited, so you need systems that ensure compliance, you've got robust data governance and audit trails, and you can essentially have visibility on that status there. And that's what Microsoft have done in what they call the Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability. The Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability has a number of, and some of the other products have a number of features. And I'm just going to touch on them very lightly. I showed you some of the screens, so I won't drill into it that much detail in terms of the actual features down to the integrity of each product, but just to give you a sense architecturally of how you can bring these together. So the core product is the Microsoft Sustainability Manager. This is that analytics and reporting kind of layer where your users interact. It's built on top of the same platform that Microsoft has built Dynamics 365 on. So it's built on top of the Dataverse and Microsoft Power Platform. So it's a very mature, popular product that is deployed all over the globe. And this is basically a pre-built app that is built on top of it that allows you, and we'll go into what it can do just for the curious. Then the next one is Microsoft Fabric Solution Accelerator for Sustainability, or ESG. So this is Microsoft Fabric is Microsoft's kind of business analytics and reporting tool and general data engineering kind of platform. So it's got a solution accelerator that gives you a leg up, and you don't have to build it from scratch. And we'll look at the features there in a second. Then if you're operating an ERP like Microsoft Business Central, which is kind of ideal for SMEs, then they're adding features so that at the financial kind of tracking level, you can also track your ESG data. And then the compliance manager and purview that I showed in the last screenshot, which is helping your auditor to bring that view that you had in that horrible looking Excel sheet into a more interactive location where auditor can look at the ESG data and trace it back to where it originated from and so on. Just looking a little bit more at the cloud for sustainability. So it is that centralized platform for tracking and reporting kind of sustainability goals. It has the ability to monitor scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions, waste management, and water usage. And it's got pre-built templates, whether it's to capture the data, whether it's to report. So somebody asked a question earlier in the chat thread there. So you don't have to build it. You have to configure it. Obviously, you saw the reporting requirements. They are somewhat complex. So it's something where you need somebody like a sustainability officer who understands the data set and the reporting requirements. But the tool is built. You have to obviously set up processes to capture the data, and whether it's manually by using the templates that it provides to ingest the data manually, or if you want to connect the data electronically through some sort of a digital kind of data pipeline, you can do those. And then the reports, the calculations, the libraries, the factor emissions library mappings, they're all provided by the tool. Microsoft curates and manages all of that for you. But it's still flexible enough. It's built on a platform that allows you to customize it. So if you wanted to calculate a new calculation that maybe Microsoft has not thought of, and it's coming down the line, and they haven't updated the product set, you can actually create your own calculations and use the and you can import in other libraries for the factor mapping if you need to. So it's not, you don't have to build it from scratch. It's thereabouts, but there is obviously some work to kind of adopt it and configure and customize it to your requirements. So this illustration kind of shows generally what the tool is doing for you, the Microsoft Sustainability Manager. It essentially, your data, which is kind of spread around your operational systems and value chain, from various mechanisms, you can actually ingest that data. So that data capture, taking that data, and then using calculation models to create the reports, storing that data on what Microsoft calls the cloud for sustainability data model, which is built on top of the Dataverse. So it's like any database, tables and rows and columns. You can see the raw data and you can see the calculation outputs, and then obviously the reports, which lead to insights. These insights can be pushed into other systems within your organization, or sent to regulatory kind of reporting endpoints that are emerging as the regulation becomes more kind of enforceable. So it kind of helps you with the full process. Here's a little bit of a deeper kind of look at the components inside. So I won't bore you to that with trying to explain every single icon, but that just illustrates the previous example and kind of makes it real. So the basic app is called the Microsoft Sustainability Manager. It's just like Dynamics 365 for those of you who are CRM customers. The users log in if they're assigned a role and they're assigned a license using their Microsoft 365 Azure Active Directory credentials. They access the tool in the browser, and they can do things like kind of configure the data capture or import the data. There's a library of connectors, so you can import the data. For example, if you're running an Azure estate, the cloud system, that consumption, obviously, you have to report on. So Microsoft provides you an easy way to put that data into your sustainability solution. Similarly, other providers will start creating connectors and you'll be able to use them. There's an API. So if you want to write your own solution from your, let's say, other line of business systems that don't have a native connector, you can actually call the API endpoint and push the data in. But you can simply start with an Excel sheet that is provided with the solution. You fill in the Excel manually or with some automation that you built outside of the tool, with whatever stack that your team is comfortable with, and you can then ingest the data from there. The data all comes into a Dataverse, and then it's used to look at the calculations. You can refer to the reference data, and you can set your goals and look at scorecards. And the output of these, the data is shown in Power BI dashboards for you. Or you can export the data in Excel if you're comfortable, or you need to pass it on to other people. So that's kind of roughly the components inside that tool, but it's pretty much built in, but you have to obviously configure this part and then make sure you're familiar with how the calculations are resulting in the reports and how would you export them out. So now the accompanying or kind of parallel tool that is also useful within that tech stack from Microsoft is Microsoft Fabric's Sustainability Accelerator. So Microsoft Fabric's accelerator allows you to ingest data, whether it's in real time or batch processing, and it's scalable. So large organizations will really benefit from this, where they're producing a huge amount of data from all across their kind of internal ecosystem. It can seamlessly integrate with real-time data telemetry from, let's say, fleets of devices or vehicles and so on, or ERP systems and other sustainability platforms. And it's kind of designed to help unify sustainability metrics and support large-scale reporting. And then the reports are obviously in tools like Power BI, which is the front end. Mukesh will show you more of that later on in this presentation. The Microsoft Fabric, if you're not familiar with it, is a data engineering kind of platform. So anything from writing data pipelines to ingest data from other cloud systems or on-prem systems or files, to kind of take that data and curate it and transform it, or move it through to create a data warehouse and then report from that data warehouse using Power BI. So and you can also use things like Synapse real-time analytics to connect to real-time data sources like IoT sensor sources and log analytics and so on. And what Microsoft has done, so the product comes kind of like a blank slate, but the sustainability data solution in Fabric is a solution which Microsoft has built on top of this stack. So you basically configure Fabric for your organization, which is already pre-built. It's in the cloud, and then you install the sustainability data solution on top of Fabric, and essentially it's just like the Sustainability Manager. It's pretty much pre-built, so you don't have to start from scratch to be able to ingest data, let's say, from the Sustainability Manager or from bespoke data sources. So it helps you ingest the data, curate it, and essentially transform it. So the transformations are all built in. Once you provide the data points, it pushes that data into a lakehouse, which is another way of saying it's a large database, infinitely scalable inside Fabric. It's already got the data model that aligns with CSRD reporting. So it's very easy at the other side when you want to map that to, let's say, the XBRL or XHTML type formats that the regulators want you to submit to. The data points are easy to map to the requirements or taxonomies that they are publishing. And essentially the art of taking the data and pushing it through, transforming it, and creating the CSRD metrics that need to go into a report, this is all built in, but it's flexible enough that you can customize it even. So if the regulation changes and the solution accelerator is not being updated by the vendor, you, with a little bit of data engineering skills at your disposal, can actually create new calculations or use the data for other reporting needs, because you're collating so much data that apart from the regulatory requirements for the ESG, CSRD, you can still use that data for other analytics within your organization. And then we'll look at the Microsoft Business Central. So Dynamics 365 Business Central is a very popular ERP, especially in Ireland and Europe for small to medium-sized enterprises. And what Microsoft has done is, and it does things like maintain your chart of accounts, your all your transactions, supply chain, as well as if you're doing operations management in manufacturing or logistics and so on, it keeps track of warehouse and stock and inventory and so on. So it's a full-fledged ERP, and organizations use different combination of those modules. But what Microsoft is doing is, because the data is there, they're adding a new module for sustainability features. Some of them already been released, and others are coming down in the roadmap. But essentially, it allows for comprehensive tracking of greenhouse gas emissions across the 3 scopes as defined by the ESG standards. Additionally, it includes sustainability journal to record activities and metrics, and a chart of sustainability accounts to organize and analyze emissions data transparently. So you can enter the data manually and automatically, and you can basically kind of get accurate calculations. The Sustainability Ledger centralizes all the emissions data, making it easier to manage the reporting. And I think some of the features coming down the line are, when you get supplier invoices and so on, it can actually capture data and kind of get some of the data that your supplier needs to provide to you off of their POs or invoices. So it's again, like everything in this space, it's very fast moving, and the regulation and the tooling is trying to kind of keep up to the regulations. And then finally, when Ash touched on the Purview there, so Purview is built into Microsoft 365. So any 365 IT admins would recognize it, because it's Microsoft's the security governance and compliance kind of tool set. It's a family of functionality. It's not specifically for ESG or CSRD reporting, but it's for compliance managers. So what they've done is they've added features and templates in Purview. So all you need is a user and an Office 365 license to a role to access Purview, and then you can configure an assessment for CSRD reporting and connect Purview to, and Purview doesn't ingest any data. Purview looks at the, let's say, the data inside your Fabric sustainability solution. So you've ingested all the data into Microsoft Fabric. Purview can monitor that, and you can see where the data is coming from, the upstream systems, how it's being transformed, and how it's ending up as a metric on a report aggregated in. And then it makes sure that an auditor can see that. So as Ash showed some of the screens there. In addition, you can actually use it to collate all the, let's say, policy documents related to how you calculate the metric, or any sample data, let's say water sample data that you might have collected, if that applies to yourself. So it's kind of a one place where you can monitor and collate the information to allow auditors to kind of complete your external audit. And it's natively integrating into the other 2 tools or 3 tools that we looked at. Kind of to look at this as a best practice, if you were a Microsoft tech stack customer, is the integrated architecture is important because it allows for automation, reduces the manual effort, and increases the accuracy. Because of the infrastructure underlying in the Microsoft Cloud, it's very scalable. And because Microsoft is maintaining the features within the tool stack as the CSRD requirements are evolving, you would expect that any new requirements would be an update in a couple of months before the requirement is enforceable. So you don't have to worry about customizing your tool. But as I said, there's enough flexibility there on the platform that they're built on. And this is a lot of people who are familiar with the Power Platform and Dynamics, as well as Fabric and Business Central, that you can, if there was something that was missing that particularly applied to you, you can make the customizations yourself. But you would probably get them from Microsoft anyway. And then the Purview gives you that kind of robust data governance capability that will ensure your compliance and audit readiness. So before the auditor gets a hand on it, you have the assessment there. You can see how you're doing, and then you can schedule the audit. So all these tools within this stack are being designed to work together seamlessly to deliver the solution that you need for this type of reporting. So the requirements are very new, the tooling is very new, and everything is evolving, but it's not to say that they're not real world customers. There's a dozen odd case studies Microsoft has published, but this is one we'll look at very quickly. So this is Sodra. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's South Sweden. It's an international forest and industry group in South Sweden, and they have committed to ambitious sustainability goals. It's actually an association that represents over 50,000 family foresters and has a positive climate impact equivalent to 1/5 of Sweden's emissions. The challenges they have is collecting and interpreting climate impact data across the value chain. It was very time-consuming and complex. They have detailed sustainability questions requiring extensive data collection and analysis, and it consumes a significant amount of the team's resources to collect that across that large an organization. So they approached, together with Microsoft, the implementation of the Sustainability Manager and the Cloud for Sustainability, the other tools like the Fabric solutions and so on we touched on. This solution allowed them to automate the sustainability reporting, providing faster, more granular data analysis capabilities. So the time they saved because of the automations and the repeatable kind of ingestion process and so on, allowed them more time to do analysis. Benefits, kind of what they purport in the case study, are the enhanced visibility and speed of analysis for sustainable data, improved decision-making on resource allocation and maximizing the value of every tree, and it enabled them timely and accurate sustainability reporting across the organization. The chief digital officer of Sodra, Christian Brolin, if I quote him, "We trust Microsoft solutions, so we decided to work with Microsoft to automate sustainability reporting with Sustainability Manager much faster than ever before." So customers who have adopted this and they're coming from a background where they were manually reporting and pulling this information together are kind of willing to give reference to the tech stack. So again, there are other vendors with other products, but we're just sharing one possible approach where, as an organization, when you assess what tools you need for this type of complex reporting requirement, this is the type of tool you should be considering within kind of your architectural thinking. So something that is integrated, seamless, but has enough flexibility to allow you to kind of gain other benefits and customizations out of it. So with that, I will hand over to Mukesh, who will give you a quick whistle-stop tour of the Fabric Sustainability Accelerator solution. And you might see Fabric as a result of looking at the solution. And then maybe Ash is probably going to jump in and show you maybe one or two of the other tools we looked at, time permitting. Any questions, please do type them into the chat window. Thank you very much. Mukesh, I'll stop sharing.
Thank you so much, Mohammed, for briefly explaining the architecture of CSRD. And in the whole brief, if you noticed, Mo was talking about how there is one layer of data analytics, which is kind of important, and how in the whole ecosystem it seamlessly integrates really well. So in that component, Fabric was mentioned, and why it was mentioned is because of the obvious reasons. Firstly, it is seamlessly integrated with Sustainability Manager. That means you don't have to build or write extra logic to bring in the data. It will directly come into Fabric. That is one of the point. And obviously, second one is that it itself is a data platform which gives you all the workloads which you will need in future to develop further advanced analytics. Now, there is one more benefit that with Fabric you get this accelerator, which is with very simple clicks you can spin up your own workspace. Obviously, you'll have to configure Fabric capacity for it, but then this workspace will automatically pop up if you do those simple clicks. And with that, these workloads that you see on my screen right now, they will start appearing. Now on the top, if you see, this is the task flow and Fabric, which is quite interactive, and it actually helps somebody who is new to the platform that how the data is moving from one point to another. Like if I click on this, you will see all the artifacts or workloads which are associated to this particular process. Now, this is medallion architecture, and it is very much known to all the people who are in data analytics. And it is a very simple data movement strategy. It's like there are different layers, and every layer has its own purpose. So you are just cleaning the data throughout the process. Now, all these workloads, when they spin up, they are pre-calculated. Like, so basically, you don't have to build lake houses where you save data, and you don't have to do those calculations because they're already there. Now, I would say somewhere 70 to 80% it's already there. Maybe according to your specific needs or some different calculation which you want to do in your organization, you'll have to add those calculations in the notebook. So if you see, it starts with the first point is data ingestion. That's the first element in the whole workflow. And if you are using Sustainability Manager, then this part is skipped because the data directly lands into the system. But let's say if you are using some other systems, Excel, SharePoint, etc., flat files, APIs, like Mohammed mentioned, IoT server, IoT devices you have, etc. Then in that case, you'll have to build up a pipeline similar to this one, which will pull in the data into Fabric. The moment it lands into Bronze, there are already table. Obviously, you'll have to do some mapping so that they align properly. And then you move through the layers, and you will reach to this data visualization layer, which is very important because at the end, you want to see those aggregated data. So you want to make like insightful, you need insightful report to whatever the data that you have input. So this is the report that I'm going to open now. It is also pre-built. You don't have to do anything. You just have to click refresh button and the data set will refresh and bring in the data that you have aggregated throughout those layers. Now for this report, I'll also invite Ashley with me so that she can go ahead with some of the CSRD related terminologies because she knows better than me. Yeah, Ash, please go ahead.
I wouldn't say that now, Mukesh, but okay, perfect. So what you're looking at here on your screen is the Microsoft Fabric, and it's built to align with CSRD. So if you look closely at the dashboard, you can see, say, where it has total greenhouse gas emissions, you can see the corresponding E1641D. So this means that this data point is going to be aligned to that exact point of reference in the CSRD. So you can do lots of great things here. You can split it, year on year, site by site. It looks at location-based and market-based approaches, methods. And then if we move into social there, Mukesh, so I've seen, as we mentioned earlier, there's a lot of tools out there, and we are just showing you the Microsoft ones today because that's what we're familiar with. But what's really good about this one is the social metrics that are built in here, because you see a lot of tools that are very geared toward emissions and you don't see the social element to it. So in CSRD, as I mentioned, social is very important. Your HR department will be heavily involved in this. You've got your total employees, incidents of discrimination. So these are all different data points that are pointing at say your HR systems or your operation systems to pull this data in. And if we scroll down, we have our health and safety indicators there. These are all very important for CSRD. And then training and skills development indicators. So the number of hours per employee, and you're seeing all the different types of ways that you can split it out. And actually what's important about this particular graph is you can see that you have to report on the average hours per employee, but you have to break it down by full-time employee, part-time, and they need to see that level of detail. So that's important to know for the CSRD. So yeah, I think that's everything, Mukesh. Do you want to close it up?
Yeah. So as Ash explained this whole report, and I'll go back to Fabric now. I mean, just to like summarize, in this rule, it's just like with this accelerator, since you get everything already pre-calculated for you. Now your creativity and with your imagination, you can do whatever you like. And if you have some specific use case in your organization, you can then add on to these pre-built calculation, and there are notebooks which can actually help you understand some of the calculations if you open them, and you can tweak them. So there is no hard and fast rule that you can't touch them. You can copy paste the code as well. And also then later on, let's say you want to go into pattern recognition and AI and implement ML models, you can do that as well. So altogether, it's a complete platform. Yeah, that's all from my side.
You. Super, Mukesh. Thank you so much. And Mohammed, thank you for taking us through those demos. I'm just going to share my screen. Now we're coming to the end of this session. And before we jump into questions and discussion, I'd like to please ask if you could fill out this survey as part of the webinar. So I'll pop it in the chat, and I'd really appreciate if you could give your opinion on how it went today, and it'll help us drive our future training sessions as part of the Digital for Sustainability program. And as I promised, just as a reminder, Digital for Sustainability is why we're all here today. And if you do want to keep in touch, find us on the website www.digitalforsustainability.eu. We're on LinkedIn, and we have newsletters as well, so you can subscribe to those. There's lots of training going on. We're just one partner out of all the ones I mentioned earlier, so there's lots of training going on at the minute. So keep an eye for updates there. And yeah, so I suppose to wrap up the session, I really appreciate you coming on today. I hope you got a lot out of that. CSRD does seem daunting, but we're all in the same boat, and it's really achievable once you look at it from an iterative and circular approach. Don't boil the ocean, and ensure that you do utilize digital tools that are out there to help you with the challenge. So yeah, any questions? We'll have a look. Okay, so now on the roadmap for Microsoft Sustainability Manager, we also see social and governance light up next to environment. Yes, so Lau, hopefully that clarified that question for you, that we showed you the different social and governance metrics that are within the Microsoft Fabric at the minute. Got those. You mentioned there is a library with specific coverage. Can you clarify what that means? Can you give that a bit more concrete? Yes, no problem. So when you are doing your carbon emission footprint calculation, so you're trying to understand your overall footprint as a company. So say your company is timber, that Skoda or whatever they were called, if you're a timber producing company. So you have a certain amount of activities within your business. So you need to understand what the total impact of all those different things are. You need to understand the overall footprint. So in order to do that, you need to find a data set with timber specific products. So you need to, you would say, okay, we buy and sell this much timber, and then you need a data set to match it up to say, okay, with this calculation, it equals this amount of emissions. So what you're doing in essence is taking your transactional, so what we do as a business day on day, and you are translating that into a carbon footprint measurement. I hope that answers your question there.
Ash, it's the factor libraries that are in Sustainability Manager that provide that?
Yes. So you'll see they have a huge amount of
I'll just share my screen. I was loading it in the background. So this is Microsoft's Sustainability Manager as a Power App. I just show you. So this is kind of the homepage dashboard where the users interact. And you go into the settings, you can see the calculation libraries. So maybe, Ash, if you want me to click somewhere, I can.
Yeah, if you just scroll down through them. So when you are doing this calculation, you need to find a data set that suits your company. So if you're a timber producing company, you'll find it probably in the DEFRA data sets there, EPA, there's, if you're a steel company, if you're any sort of an industry, you will have to find the corresponding data set to your company needs. And there's loads of them in here. And if it isn't there, you can find one and bring it in as well and map it to that. But once it's in there and it's mapped, it takes away a lot of the effort and calculation needed to, like, it's literally, it's a science, it's a big mathematic equation to do it. But once you have this in here, you don't need to worry about the mathematics of it. The system does that for you.
So when we were saying that Microsoft provides curated data sets or factor libraries, this is what they're bringing in, and they're curating this content and importing in any updates so that you can convert your activities into the correct emissions calculations. And these are then referred to in the calculation models.
Yes,
so
to them.
So that, yeah, and that then the calculation then uses them, and that well helps you produce your report there. So
yeah, it's really powerful stuff. And you can imagine if you're doing this on an Excel sheet, how difficult that would be. So yeah, Sustainability Manager takes a lot of the hard work out for you.